Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this latest edition of Overall Overtime. And delighted to have this terrific guest right here, one of the best, if not the best, college football as well as NFL and pro football drafts analyst, because it's not only NFL he does, but the CFL, the UFL, all the way to the Arena Football League. He has all the evaluations of all the top prospects, not only in FBS, not only in FCS, hell, maybe someone even on the planet Mars. The great sir that is Emory Hunt. Give him a round of applause, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a round of applause, indeed. Sir Hunt, great to see you, brother, as you always are one of the best, if not the best. Great to see you, man, and great to have you here on this edition of Overall Overtime.
Always a pleasure, man. Glad we was able to make this work, and appreciate you bringing me on the show. Good to see you.
No doubt, in the pride of the Raging Cajun that you are. Sorry to the good sir Billy Napier, but this man right here is number one Raging Cajun right here, alum. And I gotta ask you, and before we get into talking about the top prospects of this 2024 NFL draft season that have had their whole displays in NFL preseason, we also going to be talking about on the 2025 NFL draft horizon, the quarterback class that is looming and how promising that it may be, where I honestly think it could even be even as deep, if not even deeper, than the 2024 NFL class that we've seen now in this NFL preseason. So before we talk about that 2025 NFL class of quarterbacks or possible prospects there, I want to ask you so far, how have you viewed the 2024 NFL quarterbacks in the first round so far in their preseason performances, as we've seen some standout performances from, of course, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, but also even Bo Nix, and the interesting decision by the Atlanta Falcons to have Michael Penix, after playing well against the Dolphins in the first preseason game, not play, it appears, the rest of the preseason. What's been your initial thoughts so far on the 2024 NFL draft first round quarterbacks in the preseason?
Well, it's interesting to look at a couple of guys, Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix, because they played a lot of college football. And so if we're talking about guys that have been able to step in and not only look the part, but play the part because they've seen a lot, done a lot over the course of 5, and in some cases 6 college football seasons, they are playing like they've played the game a lot before. So it's been impressive to watch those guys just kind of step in and the moment not be too big for them. For Caleb Williams, you kind of saw, a lot of what we saw at USC, being able to create off script, the arm talent to make any type of throw on the field, the ability, the field vision to keep all options open out there on the field. So if you're an eligible receiver, he's likely to hit you if you could find a way to get open. And Drake Maye, was talked about as him being the one guy that probably needs a little bit more time. And we kind of saw that, and there are some things that he has to work through. And again, he's probably the only one that's in a real quarterback, old school battle or old school situation where you kind of know the starter is going to be the veteran Jacoby Brissett for a little bit until they feel like, okay, we can get the guy ready to go. But how quickly they can get him ready to go is going to be what people will be watching for, not only in the rest of this preseason, but just during the season. If Jacoby struggles, will the call start for Maye, and is Maye ready to go? But he's also, I believe, the youngest of the 6 quarterbacks outside. He's probably younger than J.J. McCarthy, who we now know is out for the season. So he probably had the longer way to go. He didn't play a lot of football like the others did, which is why we're seeing from him what we've seen and what we see from everybody else.
Are you surprised to see the Falcons make their decision, Raheem Morris, Terry Fontenot, the GM, to see Michael Penix, who we've seen since he was at Indiana, and how he's played so much football. So he certainly doesn't lack any reps from the collegiate standpoint. Are you surprised to see him be just done for the rest of the preseason instead of play these last 2 preseason games?
Yeah, it really is a head scratcher because I mean, when you drafted him, you said this is your guy for the future, and we don't expect to see him for 3 or 4 years. Okay, well, if that's the truth, and is that the key, then why not max him out in the preseason because he's going to need those game reps against the NFL, unless you don't expect Cousins to be ready to go week one, and you may
Mm,
need this dude to play.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
but this could all be speculation because you left it up to be speculation because the answer you gave about why he didn't play in the preseason just left you thinking like, well, we only hear that from guys that are starting or are gonna play, and we really hadn't seen Cousins out there in a preseason game, and I don't expect we will. And yes, he's probably been going through the joint practices or whatnot if they had any. So it'll be fascinating to see what this statement means come week one of the regular season.
yeah. I mean, I'm still just baffled by not only that, but just the fact that if you're the Atlanta Falcons and Terry Fontenot, who has shown himself to be a quality GM, and especially another black GM in the NFL, is always something worth the praise. I'm just, baffled where you spend all this money on Kirk Cousins after he gets off an Achilles injury, let alone even if he didn't have the Achilles injury, I would have a little question towards that. And then you draft Michael Penix overall, where they could have just signed Russell Wilson and had basically the Broncos just paid a whole salary, and then Michael Penix, and then I would have understood that. Uh, it's just something where I just hope for their sake that they aren't, mismanaging the situation, considering how Michael Penix is so ready made with it. And we don't know, as you just said, if Kirk Cousins truly, as they said, he's going to be ready week one. It's a big, big, big way to say it, but then to react towards coming off an Achilles injury, particularly at that age. So, very interesting stuff about the 2024 first round NFL quarterbacks there. And just want to ask you before we move on to 2025, a guy that really, really could have been in the discussions with a Rose Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Hendon Hooker before he unfortunately had, of course, his own ACL injury against South Carolina in that game. He lit it up for the Lions against the Chiefs this past weekend. And I'm still kind of a little baffled that Brad Holmes spent and gave that big money to when Jared Goff, when we've known that Hendon Hooker has shown that himself to be a ready-made prospect once he was able to overcome ACL injury. What's been your thoughts of seeing Hendon Hooker remind people of his top talent?
Well, and a good part of his situation is that he gets to really get himself to full health and full strength and start to look like the 2023 college football season or 2022 college football season of Hendon Hooker before he got injured. And uh, to the point of a guy that has played a lot of football, played a lot at Virginia Tech, played a couple of years at Tennessee. And so you want to see if he can stay healthy. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the golf contract or when they can get out of the particular contract, but it does give them the luxury of bringing the guy along slowly, letting him get to full strength, letting him fully engulf the system that they run, and also continue to get his feet underneath him in terms of playing at the NFL speed and coming out of that Tennessee offense, getting to a more structured, you know, not as wide open offense in the NFL. It's the I guess is harkening back to the old school way of developing a quarterback because we've now seen quarterbacks play. Not everybody can be Tom Brady and play until they're 44 or whatever, right? But we're seeing these guys play later in their careers. So yes, Hendon Hooker may have been a 24-year-old rookie, and he may hit the field at 27. We saw what that looked like for Geno Smith,
Mhm.
albeit his situation was different. So you still can have a very good career later in your football career, closer to your 30s or whatnot, or even into your 30s. So I just think this is, a situation where they found a guy that they can trust. They like what he brings to the table from a mobility standpoint, from a throwing off platform standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and they're
Mhm.
not pressed to put him in. So I think that was the big key And what my big takeaway is from the Hendon Hooker situation.
Well, we know Hendon Hooker can certainly hook it up, and we'll see if he's able to continue that to have Lions fans, be comforted if Jared Goff goes down. And certainly, in our opinion, how we evaluated him, we certainly believe that once he came back healthy, that he had all the capabilities to be a viable NFL starter. And speaking of possible viable NFL starters, with college football season now here upon us for this 2025 NFL class of quarterbacks, where even though we came off the historic six quarterback first round draft that we've just witnessed, uh, a lot of people, I think, because I think a lot of parts of people may not think that then this class would then produce something near that. But I've always been very hyped about this class, considering how, guys like Cam Ward coming back into this college realm in terms of the draft, a guy like Jayden Daniels, who had his injuries and now having possibly a full season for him, where that class could have been even deeper, the 2024 NFL draft class. This class right here, I mean, just going down the list where I'm still someone that has Shador Sanders. To me, I feel as like the best quarterback I've seen as prospect. But they have Shador Sanders and Carson Beck there. Brady Cook this season that he had. Quinn Ewers, another quarterback that at the beginning of last season you would have thought would have been in that draft last year and would have been a first round quarterback. But he comes back and has to deal awkwardly with the Arch Manning hold salt down there for Steve Sarkisian seeing. But this class, I mean, Riley Leonard, another guy that was considered, even though not by me, like a top 25 quarterback at the beginning of last season by the likes of Mel Kiper and a few others. I mean, this class right here could not only match the first round number of quarterbacks in the 2024 class, but maybe even surpass it. I'm seeing at least 13, 14 guys that are at least first round talented, or it's not out the realm of them being a first round prospect. Do you see it as that too? Or what's your whole take on this class right now?
I love this quarterback class because it's a combination of, you know, experience. You got a lot of guys that have played 5+ years in football, so you're going to get that part of it. Guys that could probably step in and handle an NFL team right away and played a lot of big time games. You also get the dynamic player, the Jalen Milroe. If
Hmm?
Caden Salter decides to enter the draft, he's another one that, gives you a little bit of that Kyler Murray type deal. You have the guys that are just classic throws of the football, to use that term. You talked about Brady Cook. You talked about Shador Sanders, who I also believe is a QB1 in this class. Cam Ward gives you that dynamic playmaking ability, kind of like a Tyrod Taylor. And there's some under the radar guys like the Donovan Smiths of
Yes.
University of Houston, drones out there, Virginia Tech, guys that could take tremendous steps forward. Wily vets like your KJ Jeffersons and those guys. You talked about Raleigh Leonard. You have Matthew Sluka, who's going to do great things this year at UNLV.
Yep.
So yes, not only is this I think, and I always feel this way about a lot of the draft classes every year. So that's why I always say there's never a down year for positions because it's so deep in college football. But this year, in particular, talking about the quarterback class, you're looking at guys that could be your day one starters in terms of like high level. Hey, this guy could be the CJ Stroud of this class type
Hmm.
players. You also have guys that help strengthen your QB2 on the roster because that's where the NFL really needs to focus on and getting better. How good are you behind your starting quarterback? Do you have a guy that you can trust for a 3 to 4 game stretch to start and help you win games and
Mm.
not be a liability? Not just holding up a spot to where he's, you're dead in the water if he gets out there. You want a guy kind of like look at the Jets depth chart, right? You have Aaron Rodgers who could be your starter, but you
Yep.
have Tyrod Taylor who can start and win games, that has started and won games and has gotten the team to the postseason. But you draft for Jordan Travis, you sign the UFL MVP in the kid from Kansas State, Adrian Martinez.
Hmm.
So you kind of give yourself some options with talented quarterbacks. So if you're able to do that, because we have seen out the course of the last since COVID, where you're going to need your backup quarterback to play. You know,
Yeah,
we've seen Baltimore do a good job of having good depth at quarterback where they can still win games without Lamar Jackson, albeit they'll be tight games, but they'll still find ways to win. And
Tyler Huntley was
nonetheless,
Tyler Huntley was to me tremendous, and that's why I'm shocked to see him be third string on the Browns.
well,
Honestly,
to
but yeah.
your point, look at the Browns. Look at Jameis Winston, who probably should have been the starter in New Orleans
Hmm.
last year, but now you have him behind a Deshaun Watson, and so like you're seeing certain teams do a good job of understanding the value of QB2, and I feel like this 2025 class, man, like you could literally become strong at the quarterback position at both QB1 and QB2 with this class.
I'm so glad that she mentioned Donovan Smith and Keaton Slater with how dynamic they are. I mean, Donovan Smith, I mean, he's 6'5". I mean, the guy really has like a terrific arm and has athleticism and flash, after he transferred from Texas Tech. And another guy I was thinking about is seeing the Boise State transfer to Arkansas, Talon Green. I mean, this guy is someone that could have like a Jordan Love type of profile if he has just a solid year at Arkansas. And I'm glad you shouted out KJ Jefferson, who I really thought I really wish he would have left 2 years ago, frankly, because he showed tremendous growth in his accuracy at Arkansas. And then last year was surrounded by really nothing around him. And I hope that he hasn't really hurt his draft stock as we saw Michael Penix at least stay. And then it actually then led to him solidifying his first round credentials that I thought he had a year ago. But yeah, a guy like Daquan Finn, who I've been a huge fan of when he's at Toledo and now at Baylor, like a guy who's had natural talent. And as you mentioned, a guy like Jalen Milroe, how he will do with Kalen DePore and how he showed tremendous growth as a passer last season. Who for you? And we didn't even mention Drew Aller, who in a
Right.
make or break season for at least James Franklin at Penn State. But we know he's had his hype and has at least a top 5 arm. Who for you right there is this quarterback that isn't a first round guy at the moment, or at least consensus first round guy, but that will have that jump, to see the jump that we saw from the Kyler Murrays of the world, to solidify and be a whole top 1, top 2, top 3 prospect? You mentioned Slater. You mentioned at the very least those Donovan Smith as well. Who for you is another quarterback that you say, hey, they really could have a full first round evaluation across the board with a quality year?
I feel like a lot of people aren't giving Brady Cook a lot of credit.
Yeah,
Out of Missouri, like Brady Cook can ball. Like
yeah,
he's tough minded. He can throw the heck out the football. We saw him versus LSU. Just do a great job of, obviously a part of that was LSU's defense, but you still got to make these throws, right?
yeah,
And so he's made some tremendous bucket throws, some tight window throws. He has a gunslinger's mentality, but in a good way, to where he's not going to put the ball at risk, but he's going to challenge these windows because he feels as though he can make these throws. And he
yeah,
has a great receiver in Luther Burden the third, junior. I'm sorry, and so Brady Cook to me is one of those guys that we could see take that jump. From people may say he's a third or fourth round pick or whatnot, fine. But I feel like if he has another season like he did this year or last year, and Missouri wins a couple of big games, people will start to look at his evaluation differently. You talked about Drew Aller, and how he performs. He's another one. Scouts are high on him, pro scouts, because he had, like you talked about, he checks that profile.
mhm,
Um, and if they let him throw, like they let him throw when he came in that game 2 years ago against Purdue, where
yeah,
you was like, wow, why is he not over Clifford, right? And
yeah.
so last year they just didn't let him throw a lot. I hope they let, now the offense has changed. They're going to feature what he does well. So between him and Brady Cook, I feel like those are the two guys that have the chance. I know we've been saying it about Aller, since that Purdue game,
Mhm.
but I do feel like this is a chance for him to really step up and enter that first round category, as well as Brady Cook.
Yeah, it's just extraordinary where I'd be risk like to not even give Jackson Dart a little bit of a shout out with how
Right.
this the huge year for Ole Miss and how he's always had at least sort of athleticism and dual threat ability here and there to have his own high quality tape and a guy who Cam Ward replaced in Miami and now in Wisconsin, Tyler Van Dyke. I mean, this guy, I you had you at the beginning of Miami season 2 years ago, the likes of Elise, not only Mel Kiper, but Tom Maye that were talking about him as a top 10 guy before that full disastrous season, that he had. And then the following year, last year in Miami, I mean, he could have a revival at Wisconsin and put himself in discussion because the NFL still loves the drop back quarterback that has that big arm in that way. So
Well, speaking of that, I'll be remiss to not mention T.J. Finley at Western Kentucky.
yes,
Six
great.
six, 6'7", classic drop back passer with a legit rocket launcher, and he's playing in this offense at Western Kentucky that's going to accentuate his ability to really touch every quadrant of the field. So that's another one that has played a lot of football, seen the ups and downs, led Texas State to their first bowl game in program history last year before he transferred to Western Kentucky.
Mhm.
TJ Finley, he's married, so that shows some level of maturity that pro scouts like. He has a huge arm. If he can clean up some of the footwork this year and be a little bit more consistent, that's another one that has covered. And he is a tremendous passer, especially going deeper down the field.
He is certainly a big boy and has that ability to really flash that way. Well, that's a great shout out there, M, because I'm thinking about Talon Green, and you got a guy like him that's 1 inch taller and has those attributes there. Well, someone that has great attributes always in being the best NFL and just pro football draft scout available anywhere, especially with his football game plan reviews. I mean, they are detailed as much as any Sean McVay playbook is a great sir. That is one. Emory Hunt, give him a round of applause once again for being here on this whole episode. Overall overtime with the right there. And appreciate you, man. And we'll definitely try to talk to you throughout the course of what's going to be an incredible, incredible college football season and NFL season again. And also for CFL concluding because he's on it too in a great way. Appreciate you, EH.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Definitely. And thanks for enjoying this latest episode, Overall Overtime, with me, Andrew Jones, on Bleav Network. Take care. God bless. And have a great rest of your day.